Hi guys, something a little bit different today. Obviously, I've been at Newmarket. For those who followed my social media, I've been at Newmarket all weekend for the Guineas Festival, and I thought I'd do a video to reflect upon my thoughts of what I've seen over the past 2 days. Now, plenty of reputations and bubbles have been burst, some more than others, and we'll get into those very shortly. The 2000 Guineas I thought was the best starting point for this video. The big story emerging from this race was, of course, City of Troy disappointing at very short odds to try and win this 2000 Guineas. A lot of people said he's not quite the same horse he was last year. I disagree. I think he's exactly the same horse he was at two. I just think a lot of the other horses, a lot of the other 2 year olds he was so far ahead of at two, have all grown over the winter physically and have improved, whereas he's perhaps just stayed the same. And he ran very much accordingly, in my opinion. At halfway, he checked out pretty quickly. From what I've read online this morning, the plan is for him to go straight to the Derby. I wouldn't be too keen on backing him or supporting him for a Derby off the back of such a poor reappearance. I get that August Rodan, it was almost a mirror image of August Rodan's run last year, but what I took away from last year's Guineas and in the build up to it was I always believed personally that August Rodan would be better over a mile and a half. I always thought we'd see a much better August Rodan over a longer trip. I didn't think he was any idea of a Guineas winner at any point last year. So I always thought those who talked about him being a Triple Crown winner were perhaps getting a bit too ahead of themselves at one point. I thought he had to do a lot to prove he could be a Triple Crown contender before going on to try and do all three. And City of Troy himself, I didn't think Ryan Moore at any stage of the race looked happy. I think he looks like he lacked a little bit of speed for a mile now. And a mile and a half might suit him. I'd be more interested to see what happens with him in terms of his Justifies dirt pedigree, coming from Justify, of course, being an American Triple Crown winner. I'd like to see him on the dirt in America at some point. We might see it in the summer. We might see it at the Breeders' Cup in November, possibly in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm not too sure. But I think at some point soon, or in the not too distant future, we will see City of Troy on the dirt. He was a huge disappointment, of course he was. And it's very much now a case of trying to find out what the issue was, if there was one, and going back to the drawing board and getting him ready now for a crack at the Derby. Take nothing away from the winner notable speech, though, having his first turf start. If you go back to his win at Kempton last time out, the last two furlongs visually were very impressive. He took off from in behind and won very nicely. I think the times on the clock backed that up as well. But to do what he did on his first turf start at Newmarket, which can be a difficult track for a 3 year old, shows he's got plenty of class, and I'm interested to see where he goes next. I think he might meet Rosalian at Royal Ascot next month in the St James Palace Stakes. I thought Rosalian himself ran a cracker first time up. Coming into the dip, I thought he was a likely winner. Sean Levy was travelling ever so well, but just didn't find as much as Notable Speech did. I think Richard Hannon said off the back of his Sporting Life column this morning that both he and Hartem will go to the Curragh for the Irish equivalent, the Irish 2000 Guineas, before hopefully meeting Notable Speech at Royal Ascot next month. I thought Hartem himself ran an absolute cracker in third. The Craven winner, lots of people, including myself, perhaps looked at that Craven and thought it was quite weak. But Hartem ran to form again, ran a great race. And to be fair to him, he's not ran a bad race this season so far. I think he was perhaps not campaigned too well at the back end of last year, but has been campaigned well at the start of this year. And we're now seeing a much better Hartem. So if both he and Rosalian go to the Irish 2000 Guineas, I'd like to hope Rosalian can win that then it sets us up for a nice clash at Royal Ascot between two classic winners. It'd be fantastic to see that. But for me, notable speech, got a big future ahead of him. I'd like to see him stay at a mile. I think he's going to be very much a miler. I can't see him getting a mile and a half. I think the mile will be his trip, and he's got a lot of good speed for that. I look forward to hopefully seeing him at Royal Ascot next month. 7 Questions was a good winner of the Palace House Stakes, a narrow winner in the end. I did not see the Dream running so well on ground that she doesn't like. She's very much a soft ground horse. And when the ground was drying, I totally disregarded her chances. She was very unlucky not to win this. 7 Questions wins it. Callum Shepherd and George Scott had a good winter, of course, with Isle of Jura winning the Bahrain Triple Crown at Sakir over the course of the winter, and their forms trickled into this season as well. A big win for Callum, and I'm fairly confident now we'll see 7 Questions involved in all those good 5 furlong sprints over the course of the summer. And going back to the top of the card here, Desert Cop was a surprise winner of the Heritage Handicap. He had some smart Group 1 form at halfway last season, but then towards the back end of last season lost his way completely. Finished last at Kempton last time out. Again, I didn't think he had much chance in this at all. I thought this race would be far too hot for a horse who's been out of form for a large part of this year and back in the last year as well. But he won well, and I think Andrew Balding came out and said post-race, a crack at the Wokingham on the last day of the Royal meeting will be on his agenda. Similar race to this, a big field, fastly run 6 furlongs should suit him, and he could go close in that as well, possibly. Looking back, sorry, I should say, on yesterday's action, 1,000 Guineas Day We'll start with the Pretty Polly Stakes. Now, a lot of people looked at the 1,000 Guineas, I should say, for a potential Oaks candidate. I thought one here. I thought the winner, Friendly Soul, was very much an Oaks candidate for the big classic in June, and I feel like she's perhaps just been forgotten about in the aftermath of what happened in the 1,000 Guineas, and we'll come on to that very shortly. Friendly Soul's got plenty of stamina in her pedigree, a half sister to the former smart French stayer called the Wind, who won a Prix de Cadran and a very valuable race in Saudi Arabia during the Saudi Cup meeting a couple of years ago in his pomp. He was a very smart stayer at the time, and Friendly Soul's got a lot of that stamina in that pedigree. She was very gutsy and finished very strongly to repel the challenge of Kalpana. I felt Kalpana herself ran a very sound race in second. The front two pulled 12 lengths clear of the third, so it's evidently clear to see the first two home in this are very much head and shoulders above everything else in the race. I can't see Kalpana going to the Ribblesdale, in my opinion. I think she lacks the speed for that. She appeared to be one pace yesterday. I think to win the Ribblesdale, you need to have a turn of foot at some point in that race at Ascot to win that. I'd like to see her perhaps in time go up to a mile and a half. I think she could get a mile and a half. Be no problem at all, in my opinion, for her getting a mile and a half. She was just outstayed by a stronger filly on the day. And I'd like to see Friendly Soul go to the Oaks. I think she'll have a fantastic chance of running well in Oaks as well. And she's very much one for me who look to be a very good contender for the Oaks next month. Going down the rest of the card in the Dahlia Stakes, Staler was a very gutsy winner of the Dahlia Stakes. I'm not too sure what to make of Running Line anymore. She threw the race away, in my opinion. I thought coming into the dip, she had the race sewn up, but she hung left and again she chucked it away. She's now 4 years old, I do believe, and well, a 5-year-old, I should say. I think at the end of the day, and I'm not too sure where you go with her next. Really, she's thrown this race away when looking like she had it sewn up. Stay Alert's dropped off the back of a nice pace and one going away. Stay Alert herself had some very smart form in behind Via Sistina at the back end of last season, so the Group 1 form was all there in the book for her. Lost her way after that and has come back now. I thought the best time to catch her was first time up as fresh. And she won very nicely in the end, and hopefully she'll be involved in all those top fillies races, those top Group 1s over the course of the summer as well. Now, going down to the 1,000 Guineas, a bit of a shock in this. Elmalka was a bit of a shock winner of this 1,000 Guineas, getting up right on top of the line to deny Porta Fortuna. Remember, too, he kicked on coming down into the dip. I thought she had the race sewn up. I think the jockey on board, Adrian Lemaitre, would like to have this race run again and count to 5 possibly before going for home so soon. She showed lots of early speed, so the drop back to 6 furlongs or even 7 furlongs could still be within her means. But I'd like to see her back at a mile again to see how she gets on. Ridden a bit more conservatively this time. Elmalka at one point was detached last. She was not my idea of the winner at all at halfway, and she's had to come all the way around the outside. Showed plenty of guts, plenty of ability as well. Viking went out of Narain. Narain herself, Roger Varian trained the dam all those years ago. Narain was a former useful filly back in her day as well. So there's plenty of ability in that pedigree, and I'm looking forward to see where she goes next. Roger Varian post race was pretty keen to say that her work at home wasn't fantastic, and he had his concerns going into this race whether or not she'd run well. But some fillies sometimes don't show their best at home and save their best for the racetrack. And Elmalka is definitely one of those fillies. Porta Fortuna's run a cracking race again in second. I thought she was going to win at one point and just been chinned on the line. Tamfana's probably the one you have to take out of this race. She had no luck at all in running. Every gap she went for. I felt sorry for Jamie Spencer. The door shot in every single position. By the time in which he's angled out to try and make a challenge, the winner's made her run and gone. So he's basically playing catch up. And by the time he's got organised, got out in some space and delivered his challenge, she finished all too late in the end. I thought Ylang Ylang herself again ran a cracking Oaks trial. I've always thought she was a filly who'd make into a nice Oaks contender. Even at the back end of last season, winning that filly's mile, she always looked to me as though she'd appreciate a longer trip. Mile and a half at Epsom will be tailor made for her, and I think she ran a lovely trial for this and should go to Epsom in good form and perhaps go close as well. So I think we've seen a couple of Oaks candidates over the course of yesterday. I look forward to seeing if those candidates sort of stand their ground over the coming weeks before we roll into June and into that sort of start the classics and slash the derby as well. Fallen Angel here, just a final word on the 1,000 Guineas. Fallen Angel was bitterly disappointing. I think Carl Burke's overriding emotion from Night Raider and Fallen Angel would be disappointment. I thought Night Raider ran a poor race as well. He was my paddock pick in the paddock in the prelims before the 2,000 Guineas. He ran no sort of race. He dropped out pretty tamely, as did Fallen Angel. She had a lovely early positioning behind the leader, and when asked for her effort, there was nothing underneath really, which was bitterly disappointing for a filly who was fantastic last year in winning the Moyglare. Perhaps she hasn't quite trained on like expected. I thought her work 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now over the Craven meeting. They worked before racing some of the horses to Carl Burke, and she was one of them, Fallen Angel. I thought she worked pretty well, but it's quite clear that she might not have just trained on like they thought she would have. So hopefully we'll see her back to her best next time out, but that was a bitterly disappointing run. Dance Sequence 2 didn't run very well off the back of her second in the Nell Gwyn here a couple of weeks ago as well. Now, going through the rest of the card, yesterday's card, there was a couple here well worth putting in your tracker. And I thought that Ripple Effect was one to put in the tracker from the 4:15 yesterday by Kamiko. He finished off his race really nicely, outpaced at halfway, but stuck on eye-catchingly. Perhaps like Kamiko himself, will not be seen to best effect over 5 furlongs, and will probably get better for a better trip in the near future, for a longer trip in the near future, perhaps over 6 or 7. But I thought Ripple Effect was an eye-catcher and was one to put in your trackers long term. The actor looks to be Coventry bound now after winning the novice stakes by a narrow margin in the end. I thought it was a cosy neck. The final winning distance was a neck. I thought it was a cosy neck. At halfway, he looked to be the likely winner to go on and win by a couple of lengths. It took him a while to go by Tropical Storm. But once Sean Levy got serious and got stuck into him properly, the actor picked up well. And I think the next perhaps flattered Tropical Storm in the end. And I think looking later on down the line, we've seen a very smart prospect here in the actor. Can he win a Coventry? He's currently best price 14 to 1 for it. I'm not too sure just yet. We'll have to wait and see what happens between now and then. He should have a good chance, though. He travels very nicely through his races and picked up when asked seriously to go and win his race. He did pick up and find it at the end of the race. So that's one to wait and see how that unfolds over the course of the coming weeks in terms of going to Royal Ascot and winning a Coventry. And finally, to conclude with, we'll wrap up with Black Run. He won the finale here in very gutsy fashion to repel the late challenge of the Huey Morrison trained Sun God. Black One himself was dropped back down in grade yesterday, a massive drop down in grade from Group 3 into Class 3 handicap company. And his first goal on good ground as well. His last 3 runs have been run on all of a softer surface, so he appreciated the quicker ground here. He's a massive horse in the prelims. Being by Nathaniel, Nathaniel himself was no small horse at all. He was quite a big horse, physically imposing in the prelims, and Black Runs basically inherited all of that from his sire. I didn't think at one point he'd like this ground, but Tom Marquand gave him a lovely ride, just popped him out in front, set a fairly sedate early pace. He was very gutsy and battled all the way to the line. And I think Paul and Oliver Cole have got a very nice horse to look forward to over the course of the season. I think he'll be back up in listed company, perhaps even group company over the course of the summer. But Black Run, very impressive physically as well. And he's another one to add to your trackers going forward over the course of this season. Now, that, guys, was my Guineas roundup. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all very soon.